This is the Relevant Podcast.
It's episode 1166, and it's the Relevant Podcast 1166. Here in Orlando, I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and joining me from Loverland, Virginia, is Jesse Carey.
Hello, hello.
From Nashville, our managing editor, downtown Emily Brown.
Hey, y'all.
Three of us today. Welcome back. You missed the last episode because you were with your family in Fort Worth, Texas. Yes. And we missed you. We're glad you're back. Jesse, I got to tell you, we work video. So we had many meetings and stuff, and she was working from her mom's quilt room. Right. So I thought, that's great for acoustics. You should do interviews. I mean, there's just fabric draped all over the walls. This is great.
Yeah.
And I was asking about a certain quilt that was directly behind her, the meaning of this, that, whatever. And she said, but probably the best tapestry type item in my mom's home is a blanket, a woven tapestry blanket of me and my brother when we were in high school. And it was a picture, a woven full-size blanket, cuddle up soft blanket, where it is woven. And it was 2009 emo Emily. We call her Emily. Yeah. And she had the swoop side dark black hair side part. Her brother did too. And it was their two faces, probably 6 feet tall. It was it was the most amazing thing ever.
It's like a full size blanket. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question because I'm having trouble visualizing this, believe it or not. Are we talking like this was a quilt and this photo was somehow screen printed on, or was the photo is your mom some sort of
crochet, woven,
crochet savant where she's looking at a photo and using pieces of yarn to illustrate this in a kind of illustrated cartoony manner, or is this a photograph?
I now wish it was the crochet one because that would be so much funnier. No, so what happened was that year for, I don't know why, my mom really wanted us to have family photos taken. So we went on down to JCPenney and had some classic family photo shoots. And, different ones with the whole family and then ones of just my brother and I. And we picked some, to print out and put in our home. But we saw that there was also an option that JCPenney could make a tapestry out of one of the photos. And so we conspired and said, we're going to get this for my mom for Christmas and as a surprise. So she had all these photos of us up in the house. And then Christmas Day, she now has this blanket tapestry of a 2009 emo Emily and emo Matthew just
Jesse,
looking.
It's not screen printed. It's not like you can put it on a beach bag or something like that.
Yeah.
It is woven. The picture is woven. And so I was like, holy cow, this is hundreds and hundreds this is a good gift. And she's like, oh, no, you can get it for $30 online. And so she sent me a website, and sure enough, you can upload any photo and they will weave a blanket out of it up to, queen size, king size, huge blankets for $30-$40. I put in there just as a comp, a Nicolas Cage head, and it said husband material or husband goals. And I are, beautifully designed. And I was like, I could make this for you for your, gift, Emily, this year.
This makes me so nostalgic for the golden age of department stores. A lot of people think of the golden age of department stores as the Mad Men era, where it's where people dress up to go to Sears and Roebuck or whatever, or Montgomery Ward or whatever. You know what I mean? It was a big outing as the family, and everyone would look sharp. A lot of people think that was the golden age of department stores. You know what I mean? Like Christmas Story or whatever.
Yeah.
Where there's a slide going through and going at Christmas time is a big deal. No. The golden age is Christmas stores where you go into JCPenney, buy a set of tires. Okay, buy Bugle Boy jeans, fitness equipment, and they also have a family portrait studio where you can get photos taken and have them woven onto a quilt, all in one experience, jammed onto the side of a shopping mall. That is the golden age of American consumerism right there.
That's America. Yeah.
And now you can do all that. You have to just do it all online. And there's
no fun. That's no fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I want to go there, and then I want to go to the food court. And that's, that is the golden age of American
A family
shopping.
portrait with Cinnabons afterwards. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Nothing better.
And honestly, the quilt holds up. It's been 15 years and it's still a solid part of the family house. The worst part though is in college, like when I brought friends home and they would see the blanket for the first time, it was obviously their favorite blanket because they thought it was so funny looking. And so then I would be like sitting on the couch with my friends and they'd be like underneath this blanket. So I'm staring at them while also staring at my high school self. And that was tough. That was tough to kind of like come face to face with probably my worst haircut of all time.
What are you talking about?
I got to be honest.
You had the full Avril Lavigne side part swoosh.
I'm fully aware I had it.
I got to be honest. I feel like if I was at a buddy's sleepover and they were like, "Hey man, just use this," and it's like I'm sleeping in a blanket, like wrapped in pictures of him and his siblings. I think I'd feel a little weird. I think I'd just prefer to go without the blanket. I think I just do. What you do at a sleepover when you don't have blankets when you're a kid, you just grab a couple couch cushions and kind of pure wedge yourself to stay warm. I think that would feel less awkward than like a family portraited. I
didn't know this existed, but it is now my official gift for everybody. I am going to make blankets of them and send it to them. It's not much money. It's insane.
Yeah, I was gonna say my brother and I did it. We had no money. We were in high school. So if 2 high school kids can do it, honestly, you should go. I do wish that it was more normalized to go to JCPenney and do family photos because I think that it was honestly really funny just trying on all the different things. I know they still have it because I've seen people on TikTok do it with like their college roommates so that they have decor for their house. And I think that's very funny. I think we should bring back awkward JCPenney family photos.
Early days, this is I'm telling you the ancient history of the thing you're part of. In 2006, so we started this podcast in 2005. In 2006, Kara Davis, Jesse Carey, Adam Smith, and myself were the podcast cast. And we all recorded together at our studio in Orlando. And we decided it would be funny for the cast to go down to JCPenney's to do a portrait for the podcast, advertisements and stuff. So, of course, everybody like takes on a persona like we're in a Wes Anderson film. Like Kara has on a mink stole and Jesse has a tennis racket like he's Owen Wilson.
I think I got a vest somewhere too. I don't know where.
A vest on. That is right.
I think I bought the vest out in the JCPenney like menswear section.
I had on a fedora and a pipe. Adam had on a monocle and a pipe. Like it was great. And so we took these photos in front of a blue background, the most random assortment of characters, and we got them printed, JCPenney's, and we got them printed. We put the Relevant Podcast logo in the corner and we got them made into posters. But what was funny is obviously we were publishing the magazine at that time. And one of the big things for like magazine subscriptions is like you do a promotion of like, hey, if you subscribe today, you'll get a free football phone or, whatever, they would be doing. So we did a promotion one summer to kind of tie in the podcast and the magazine that this JCPenney's poster of the podcast would be included with any new subscription. But what's funny is our audience back then was very separated. There was the serious magazine readers who it was a respectable, excellent magazine. And then there was this silly, bizarre redheaded stepchild called our podcast. And then neither the two shall meet. I mean, they didn't overlap at all. Like they were totally different vibes, totally different audiences. And so all these people subscribing to Relevant were getting in the mail this bizarre photo of these 4 randos that they had no clue who we were. And we signed them. We like autographed all of them, like keep dreaming the dream, Cameron, like verses and just bizarre stuff. And so there's still people that will like message us and go, hey, I was cleaning out my room or like we're moving or whatever. And I came across and people still have these random posters. I don't, but I have the original photo though, but maybe we can make up new ones. But anyway,
maybe you can print that on a tapestry,
on a towel, on a blanket. That's what we should do.
Yeah. I think, that's a product people would really want for their homes.
Yeah. I think it is.
Class up the joint. Kara had a mink stole on. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
There's nothing classier.
And maybe if they have like a lounge or something in their homes, like that's where you want to keep that.
I feel like this is for the library, for the billiards room. Like I feel like there should be a smell of mahogany and leather in the air.
The parlor.
the parlor.
Yeah.
That's what we
It
need.
is also good to like creep people out because my mom sometimes will fold it strategically to where it's just my brother and I's heads that's like folded over the couch. And so then you just see two floating heads like staring at you when you walk in the room.
But only one eyeball each because you guys both had the hair swoop covering the other eye.
Mm-hmm.
Listen. Okay, I did send y'all a picture of it if y'all wanted to see the detail.
It's a great, great item.
It's so funny. I love it. Anyway, all right, moving the show along. We have a great show coming up. Okay, so we want to do something special, something different today. Our guests, obviously, we always have artists and thought leaders and whatever. This week marks the 1 year anniversary of one of our faith heroes passing away, Tim Keller. So we were going through the archives and we realized when we talked to him about a year and a half ago, we talked for a very, very long time. There was a feature in the magazine, but there was a good 20, 30 minutes of amazing conversation that never got used. And so for today's show, we are going to look back on the message, life, and legacy of Tim Keller. And he is our guest today. So I thought it would be a neat way to commemorate his ministry and his passing a year ago. So
yeah, he's a legend.
He's a legend. One of the heroes. We also have your feedback at the end of the show, but stay tuned. Coming up next, it's Relevant Buzz. You're listening to Jake. The song is Clouds. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by The Grace Project, a compelling new novel by author Kyle Bullock. The story uncovers the details of a violent crime tied to a small-town church and the four members at the center of it all. Their lives collide as they confront weighty issues like racial equality, political divide, and LGBTQ inclusion through the lens of biblical grace. The Grace Project is perfect for individuals or small groups and is available now on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, or download on Audible. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by Company of Saints. If you're looking for an original sound in Christian music, revitalize your playlist with Company of Saints' new album, Philosophers and Poets, a genre-blending fusion of Christian electronic vibes. Explore the depths of faith, philosophy, and poetry through thought-provoking words and melodies. It's not just music, it's a journey of self-discovery and spiritual connection. Stream it now on your favorite platforms and experience a fresh take on Christian music. Find out what fans of Company of Saints love about this hidden gem. All right, it's time for
Relevant Buzz.
Tell us what's happening at the intersection of faith and culture this week, Emily.
All right. Well, okay. You guys know the Tiny Desk concert that NPR puts on, right? Just like an incredible music series with tons of different artists. Do y'all have any favorites that like come to mind when you think about Tiny Desk?
The T-Pain one where he had no auto-tune.
Yeah, I was going to say T-Pain.
Legendary. In the last year, The Sacred Souls, unbelievable.
I've got one for, I feel like this blanket Emily and her brother would have also really liked the Jimmy Eat World one a few years ago. That was fun.
And you know what? I can confirm we did love that one. So
Emily, did you love the Fall Out Boy one? The Fall Out Boy?
Of course I did. You know, wait, real fun fact about Fall Out Boy. I graduated college the same day they were doing their reunion concert in Dallas. And so I walked across the stage, said hi to like 3 people at the end, and then booked it to the concert. It was a great time.
There's no better way to graduate college than going to a Fall Out Boy.
Oh, wait, sorry. I
reunion
said
show.
college. I meant high school.
Yeah.
So that's how I finished high school. Anyways, okay. So Tiny Desk, we love it. But every year NPR also hosts a Tiny Desk contest where a ton of independent artists, like literally thousands, submit their own video for the chance to win their own full Tiny Desk concert. And there's like a whole panel of judges to pick it. Well, this year they added a new part to the contest where fans get to vote on their favorite. And our good friend nobigdyl won the fan favorite vote this year.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the first time they've ever done it. They've done the contest for 10 years, but this was the first fan favorite vote. And, you know, we can't think of anyone better. He had submitted a performance of his song, Go With the Ghost, which we're going to play right here.
back like Letterman, pack like sediment. I'm irrelevant. I seek Helen and I reach heaven cause Christ, he settled it. Might be celibate, married. All of that stuff got chucked like Barry. Now my wife in therapy, I be fair. Need price we share when we fight for purity. All sincerity scary, yeah. He been burning incense since 9 a.m. Alkaline water with the vitamins. Still he got a war raging inside of him. Lit the sage, but the pain won't go away. Came to my defense despite my infamy. Then I had to sit with my iniquity. Foolish gold, it always looks so glittery. To really glow, you gotta give it to the ghost. Where could I go? Left me out in the cold. Open the door. I had to go with the ghost. 2016 lost all my
So does that mean he gets to perform on the actual Tiny Desk?
So this doesn't mean he hosts. He hasn't won the whole contest. That's actually still going on. This just means he won the fan favorite vote, which is like a really big honor that out of thousands of submissions and thousands of votes, he was selected as the best one between fans.
Like
judges are
7,000, right? 7,000 bands submitted,
wow.
and he was the one that fans went online, went through, and voted for number one.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
But yeah, the contest is still going on. Judges are picking from 45 finalists, and Dylan is one of them. In my personal opinion, I don't know if he's going to win just since he already won the fan favorite vote. But I mean, there's still a chance. Like
they'd want to show more range, maybe do like an indie band or something for them. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But,
so
the winner overall headlines the NPR summer tour, the Tiny Desk summer tour, gets their own session, all this other stuff. But I got to think him being the fan vote, because they do this tour. There's like 5 or 10 of the best bands, tour theaters around the country. I got to think with him winning the fan vote, he'll at least be invited to the tour,
Here's the thing. I don't think the tour should take place at theaters and venues. I think it should be at like offices across
cubicles.
the country. Because otherwise it's not a Tiny Desk tour. Sorry. It's just a concert tour with bands that happen to play this one, kind of little thing.
But what if on the stage of the theater, they set up a cube farm and they actually perform from the cubicles?
Well, it's not about performing from it. It's about watching from it. So you'd have to have the audience. It would have to be one large cube farm, every venue, in order to capture the spirit.
Like the whole floor. They take all the seats out and they put the cube farm in the floor, and everybody just stands around.
Like some people are jammed in the little conference room in the corner. They got like the little water, things. That's the only way to make this fair. I think they just rent out office spaces after hours across the country to do the tour. That seems like the spirit of the thing.
That's hilarious. Well, that's awesome. Good for No Big Deal. I thought it was funny when they posted the announcement of the win. They didn't quite understand him as an artist, and they said that the band's name, because he has a full live band behind him, the band's name is No Big Deal. The lead singer's name is Dylan. The bassist is so and so. The keyboardist so. And it was like, no, he's his solo artist anyway.
He is No Big Deal. Yeah.
But they loved it. I mean, the Tiny Desk producer was talking about it. One of the judges was talking about how amazing he was. So anyway, good for him.
Yeah. So we're happy for him. All right, moving on to the next thing. You guys may have saw this week that Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker gave a very interesting commencement speech.
What's his last name?
Butker. Very unfortunate last name. But he gave a commencement speech at a small Catholic college where he told college graduating women that they should look forward to being homemakers one day. He talked about how, even though they've made this big accomplishment, that they've been lied to, and that one day they're going to be wives and mothers. And that is something that they are going to be even more excited about. No surprise, this caused a huge backlash online. A lot of women and solid men.
Hold on. He's this commencement speaker at a university, and on stage, as the commencement speech said to the women who are graduating, you've been lied to, you're focusing on the wrong things, you need to be a homemaker. How did they not cut his mic off?
That is the question, because people are like wondering, like, did you not have to run this by someone?
Yeah,
although I did
totally discredited what they've just done for 4 years. Discredit the institution. That's crazy.
Yeah. I did see a clip going around. I need to fact check on this, but apparently he's given this speech, a similar speech to this before at another college. So this is just kind of his thing, is like he's really big on pushing women to be homemakers.
I have beyond the problematic nature of the commencement speech. Like the whole idea of a commencement speech is that, I mean, listen, he's a known figure in my household because my family watches a lot of Chiefs. My daughter calls him Harrison Butt Kicker. Like that's literally what she's thought. Like when we watch the Chiefs on Sunday. But it's like maybe we should just rethink the whole commencement speaker thing. It's one thing if it's like a diplomat or like some scientist or someone who has like educational sort of like bona fides, like, oh, I can see why this person is being selected to talk at an institution of higher learning. But every once in a while it would be like, you know, an NFL kicker, like, or
Jesse,
like
mine when I graduated, our commencement speaker was Creflo Dollar. I mean,
I can only imagine the words of wisdom you got from that speech.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I'm not saying you have to be an educator, but there should be a reason beyond you have some notoriety for something that has nothing to do with higher education.
Yeah.
Like just because you can kick a football really well doesn't necessarily mean you are qualified to give life advice to a graduating room of college students
at all. Wow.
So yeah, like we're talking about, this received a lot of backlash online. But what's really interesting is that this whole speech kind of ties into a recent study that I read on Fortune about a surprising number of Gen Z and millennial women are really going against what he said in this speech because they have a goal of becoming a DINK, which is dual income, no kids couple.
What do you mean? Like there's a growth in the people who are saying this is their ultimate life goal? Like they're like it's going up in numbers? Like what's going on?
Yes. Yeah. It's a growing trend. It's not brand new, but it's been going this way for a while. But most recent reports say 45% of millennial women and 41% of Gen Z women don't want to follow these quote unquote traditional societal timelines of getting married, buying a home, and having kids. You know, they do say that they want to get married, but children is not like a part of their plan. And because they've just spent 4 years working towards a degree, they actually want to use that degree and have a career and stay in this business. And so it's just really interesting that like we're kind of at a weird time in society where things are changing, but they've been changing for a while. But I think people are trying to push back from it. And so I think this conversation about moving forward with this rise of the dinks, with people also trying to say like, no, we should push against that. I think we're going to see a lot more of that tension moving forward.
I think they should just play in response like the speech from the Barbie movie. Like, you know, you can be the doctor. There is like that was like the whole theme of that movie, right? It's like not just I felt like it cut down both gender lines actually of like there is no right way to do your life. Like for some people, there is a path where, you know, maybe they are, you know, kind of single-minded in what they feel like is their calling or career. For some people, you know, they do want to kind of make, you know, staying home with their family their primary thing. That doesn't, you know, make one doesn't disqualify the other. Like people are different, you know.
Why would there be a rise in the aspiration to be dual income, no kids? Like I'm remembering the 80s and 90s. I mean, obviously going back to the 60s and 70s, the feminism movement saying, hey, equal pay, I can be a boss, whatever. And then in the 80s, 90s, like career focus became normalized. And like, so it's not the career thing that catches my attention. My mom's a CFO. I mean, like, you know, like I'm used to like, but the no kids thing, that's interesting. That it's like, that's actually part of the aspiration now is to just be affluent and free, you know?
Yeah. Huh. Which the report did look into kind of what is leading that. And a big portion of it is women who want to have careers, and it is.
And they think they can't do both. Like,
which there are, I mean, but kind of the reasoning behind that is because it's so expensive to have kids right now. Like it's expensive. Like I'm technically a single income, no kids. And like, I am like doing fine, providing for myself. I can't imagine like having to have a kid. Like that would be so much like my finances would be thrown off by that. And so that is absolutely not a goal of mine right now, because a lot of things would need to change in order for that to happen. And I think that's the same with Dinks, where everything has become so much more expensive, even just for themselves, that adding a kid, which everyone knows is, while kids bring a lot of joy, also bring in a lot of financial issues that we have to consider. I think that that's causing a lot of people to just kind of say, I don't want a kid because like, that's just a financial stress that I don't think I can handle. And so they're trying to work around that.
It's interesting that as Gen Z and younger millennials saying this, like, I'm curious how they'll feel when they're further in their career. If they're 10 years into their career or whatever, it's like, I wonder if they're going to want other things down the road. Who knows?
Yeah. Because most people I know that have kids also feel like I can barely afford this. Like, these kids are expensive. You know what I mean? Like that's not isolated to, I feel like, I know economic conditions kind of ebb and flow and, but at the same time, I don't feel like that feeling is particularly isolated to the young generation. Like I said, I feel like even the people I know that have kids are like, this is super expensive. We can barely afford, the everything that comes along with it,
All right. What else do you have?
Last thing, super quick. We always love when faith conversations show up in unexpected places. And last week, one showed up on a Theo Von podcast. Now, for those who don't know, Theo Von is a comedian who is very funny, but is not someone I would consider to be a clean comedian. So if you look into him, be advised. Anyways, he recently had a viral Twitch streamer named Sketch on his podcast. Sketch is a young streamer who's blown up online recently for just going super viral for covering sports. And he's been embraced by a lot of like athletes and sports commentators. And so Theo brought him on his podcast to hear more about his story and like how he's handling his newfound fame. And Sketch had like a really surprising and humble response to it. And I just want to hear what he had to say.
Somebody that is like unique, I
Yes,
think
sir.
people think that that's because everybody sometimes people feel unique and it's like not a cool unique. It's like, I feel unique, but they'll mispresent it to themselves. Like, I feel like I'm not the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
But instead of thinking, oh, I'm unique, they think, oh, I'm not the same as I'm different or I'm less than,
Yeah.
But you just are like, oh, I'm unique. This is who I am. And then to see how much everybody is really interested in, like, really how much that brings warmth to people. That's awesome. That's like kind of the thing that I think we want to see.
Thank you. Yeah, because I just wanted to, when I started, I just wanted to take, I had like small tics or whatever. I'd do this with my fingers when I'm excited or whatever. But it was more of like taking off the barriers, and that's where the hand motions was like it was like getting that energy out and like letting it fly. But there was a time last year and I just like had a prayer where I was like, I want to be happy, I want to travel, and I want to meet people. And God answered me like crazy. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Wow. And you really were praying that?
Yeah. No, he humbled me for sure.
Wow, man. That's powerful, huh?
Yeah, no, power in prayer.
Yeah, I believe that too, man.
100%.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. It's important. And you were to pray, you were thinking, this is my prayer, this is what I would like.
Yeah, I didn't know it was streaming. Streaming came out of randomness. That wasn't like directly after. I just remember that prayer was like that was like my turning point.
Yeah.
It's like, put your eyes on the Lord, brother.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking for the Lord. I always am, you know? And I'll say I'm looking for the Lord, and somebody told me, hey, the Lord ain't lost.
Yeah. Yeah, true that, brother. Follow the light.
I know. That's such a good statement, man.
I feel like there's a lot of unexpected conversations that happen on some long form podcasts, especially with comedians. I'm not sitting here like as like a Theo Von stan or anything, but like particularly comedians who have like openly talked about struggles with substance abuse or sobriety. It sort of has brought a lot of people to places of self-reflection and given them the capacity. I don't know particularly if Theo Von has done like AA, but he has talked about sobriety and substance abuse and things like that. But there are a lot of comedians who have committed themselves to the AA process which a big part of that is opening yourself up to a higher power and the idea of prayer. I mean, even years before, and I know that obviously he's gone through a lot of controversies and things like that, but years before, Russell Brand had his kind of recent public conversion, he talked to us in the magazine about the language that he was first discovering faith in was the language of AA. And, acknowledging, hey, I'm broke. Something about me needs to be fixed, and I need to lean on a higher power in order to have it fixed, And I know Theo Von has kind of talked in similar ways, or Mark Maron is another example where, they've kind of gravitated towards these long form conversations that often go in directions that aren't just comedy, that really, allow people to express ideas that you might not just hear kind of casually on, Twitch or some of the other platforms that might be just a little bit more fun,
At the end of that clip, like I've been thinking about something Theo Von said where he said that he's told someone before, I'm looking for the Lord, and they responded, well, the Lord ain't lost. And I keep thinking about that, like that's a whole sermon right there. Like there's so much like depth to that little statement that he's kind of saying as a joke. But yeah, I love when there's like this surprise, serious conversation from these like very funny comedians that you don't expect.
And Jesse, you mentioned Russell Brand. We reported on it a few weeks ago when he got baptized and stuff. And as you and I know, and many people do, like he's been on a journey of spirituality, and he's adopted a wide range of spiritual practices. So when we, got word that he was doing baptism, we we're kind of thinking, all right, is he just trying on another spiritual hat?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I saw about a week later, he posted on his next podcast episode. He's like, well, I've been a Christian for a week now, and here's how it's going. And he like started talking about it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this totally reframed it for me. The baptism that he has publicly been talking about was a salvation conversion experience for him spiritually. And what was interesting about what he did on this podcast, he was talking about how his first week as a Christian has gone, and he had posted some different things, and he posted something with tarot cards, and in the comments, like Christians were saying, hey, that's out of bounds. That's not, that's something else. And so he said on this 1 week follow-up, he's like, hey, I just want to thank my new faith community, my new Christian, for the feedback, for the guidance, for the correction. I didn't know. Like, I mean, he's like, I've tried everything, and I need to actually learn what's of God and what's not. And I appreciate my Christian brothers and sisters helping guide me in my journey now that I'm a weekend and I'm just starting out. I'm the babyest of baby Christians. He was talking with such a humility and openness. I was really surprised. It sounded different than just Russell Brand, like trying to like feel something, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like, it seems like a genuine conversion that he went through.
Who has taken him under his mentorship is his fellow countryman, Bear Grylls, actually.
No way, Mr. Alpha Course. That's awesome.
Is openly, kind of mentoring him, kind of behind the scenes, one-on-one.
I mean, he really is a champion and an advocate for the Alpha Course, which comes out of Holy Trinity Brompton. Your church might have done it. It's a spiritual formation, foundations of the faith type course. So that's Bear Grylls' background is like, he's Mr. Alpha Course. So if that's who's mentoring Russell, he's getting some good foundational teaching right now. That's awesome.
Yeah. But, but to your point, like a lot of those I remember even when we talked to Mark Maron back in the day too, I remember talking to the writer after, he visited Mark Maron's garage, and Mark Maron knew the context of the conversation, why we wanted to talk to him, and Mark Maron, at the time was a pretty avowed, if not atheist, certainly agnostic, but him kind of being very open, like, man, I am jealous of what people who go to church every Sunday have. He's like, you go to a place where people care about you and share your values and want to kind of raise your family together. He's like, what could be possibly better than that? You know what I mean? Like, where I do feel like there's something about the medium that these guys have, and I say guys and girls, like, in podcasting, have welcomed people to come sit at a table with them and just talk in a very gracious, open-minded way that has led to conversations that, whether it's Russell Brand and talking with people of faith and engaging with a new community, or Theo Von, that's one of my favorite things about this medium is it's literally kind of sharing time, talking to people with no real agenda, which has led to a lot of interesting, not just conversations, but to your point, Cameron, like spiritual transformations,
Put the period on the end of this sentence. We were so intrigued by this Theo Von Sketch podcast conversation, the Russell Brand recent ones, and the other ones you're alluding to, Jesse. We actually compiled on the website over at relevantmagazine.com 5 kind of the most remarkable, unexpected faith conversations that have happened on these like mainstream podcasts in recent years. So go check that out if you're interested. We have links to the episodes and stuff. It's really great. All right. Well, that will do it for Relevant Buzz. Make sure to check out relevantmagazine.com every weekday where we are covering the intersection of faith, culture, and everything in between. Thanks, Emily. All right. Stay tuned. Up next, we have a conversation, an unreleased conversation with Tim Keller. You're listening to the Lemon Twigs. The song is Peppermint Roses. Well, today's show is brought to you in part by Crown College, a boldly Christian and academically excellent college providing a lifelong, authentic community. Crown offers on-campus, online, and graduate programs, 18 NCAA Division III sports, international service opportunities, and a vibrant student life. Discover why Crown College is ranked top 3 in America for online Christian education. Visit crown.edu today. Well, we have a very special guest segment today. One of our faith heroes, Tim Keller, passed away 1 year ago this weekend on May 19th, 2023. He was an incredible faith leader, author, pastor in New York City who spent decades pouring into the church. About 6 months before he passed away in November of 2022, he released his final book titled Forgive. Why Should I and How Can I? We talked to him at that time about the book and how to seek forgiveness with friends and family who have hurt us. We've shared that conversation on this podcast, on our site, and the digital magazine. But we actually have more of that conversation you haven't heard yet. So today, to remember Tim Keller's legacy and wisdom, we want to share our final interview with him. In this conversation, Tim spoke directly about how to address church hurt, including how to seek forgiveness and justice with an institution that may have left you feeling lost and mistreated. It's a timely discussion that sums up why he was an essential faith leader in our lives. Here's our final conversation with the one and only Tim Keller.
So something that a lot of people in my generation specifically talk about is being hurt by an institution, or specifically I'm thinking about a church. Maybe it was something a pastor taught in a sermon or something a leader said to them. But they have this frustration, and a lot of them don't want to hold on to it, but they don't know what to do with that hurt. So I would love to know, how do we go about forgiving a church or just some group that has hurt us?
Well, okay, that's great, Emily. I mean, there's forgiving a group, or you might say a corporate forgiveness, where you're forgiving a group. That can be, there's a lot of, you mentioned the church, and I'll get to that in 1 second. Miroslav Volf wrote a book some years ago called Exclusion and Embrace. Miroslav Volf is a theologian at Yale, but he's Croatian. And back in the early 90s, he wrote that book about forgiveness, but he was thinking about what was happening in the former Yugoslavia, where, in Bosnia and Croatia, the Serbians were coming and they were just wiping people out, ethnic cleansing. And the real question is, how do I, as a Croatian, not hate every Serbian? And so let me just say that book is it's kind of an academic book. It's nowhere near as easy to read as my forgiveness book. I'm a pastor and he's a theologian, and it's much more challenging. And yet in there, he does he does a really good work. The term exclusion and embrace, what he's saying is an embrace is a way of opening your arms to somebody, but then at the same time being open to them, even though they may not change. They may not embrace you back, but there's a way of extending your arms. So he was trying to talk about how as a Croatian, he had to forgive the Serbians, or at least give them an opportunity to change, give them an opportunity to reach out to him. So it was a great book and pretty difficult to read in many ways. I think a lot of African Americans or non-white people in general can be feeling the same way about white people. Now, you brought up the other issue, which is I know there's people who've been hurt by the church. And I've seen them respond negatively to me because, not that they don't even know me, but I'm a pastor and I represent the church. You can never force somebody to forgive. What you ought to do is you ought to try to explain that what we've already talked about. In fact, you've gotten some great stuff out of me here, is that you need to forgive the people who have wronged you so that you don't let them control you the rest of your life. Some years ago, I remember trying to get a guy who lived right down the street from our church in Virginia to let his kids come to a vacation Bible school. And so we went there, we knocked on the door, and we said, hey, we're having vacation Bible school. We'd be very happy to come by and pick up the kids and take them to vacation Bible school on, every morning at 9 and bring them back at 12. It was right down the block. And he said, no. He said, my father made me go to church, forced me to go to church. And it was a terrible church. And I'm never going to let any of my children go to church. And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't say this to him, but I was thinking, you know what? Because you haven't forgiven your father or that church, here you are 30 years later being completely controlled by them. In other words, you're not letting your children do this or that because this is what happened to you. You're under their control. And I think the thing to say is you do need to forgive the people who have wronged you. But I don't think we have any right. You're right. What I've seen, this is in the book, Emily, is I've seen women who are abused in the church, sometimes sexually, but very often more spiritually. They're abused in the church. And then when the abuser says, oh, I'm sorry, then everybody says, oh, you have to forgive him. And what that does is it silences her and he stays right in power. And that is not biblical forgiveness. As I've tried to show you, forgiveness and seeking justice go together. But what a lot of people have done in the church is they've used forgiveness to silence victims. They've used the idea of forgiveness to silence victims. And if you felt like that, then you leave the church and you feel like, man, I just can never trust the church again. The only thing I would want to say to them is you do still have to forgive internally so that you don't get controlled by them for the rest of your life. And then secondly, try to find a church that's not going to, all churches will not do that. So try to find a church that is not going to abuse you. That's about all I can say, because it's very similar. If you've had a bad experience with doctors, that doesn't mean that you should never go see a doctor again, because you probably need a doctor. So the same thing is, if you had a bad experience with a church, I think you still need to find a church somewhere and not let it just push you away completely.
Speaking as someone who is still in the church and loves the church, how can I be there for someone who is dealing with that hurt without making things sort of worse for them?
Yeah, Emily, and I think the thing to do would be is to try to at least invite them into fellowship with you. In other words, if they're not willing to pick up and go to a church, big institution, then try to bring them into informal fellowship. Maybe you have a Bible study. What if you have, especially, by the way, a same-sex Bible study very often happens. Women who've been hurt are, and they're out of the church completely. Because Kathy's seen this. Very often, one of the ways they can get back into it is they'll come to a women's Bible study or a women's group that's largely Christian, but is also very, very understanding of whoever's there, really listens to them. And that's the best way back in very often.
On the flip side, say I'm the one who caused someone to hurt, whether it was intentional or unintentional. How do I go about asking forgiveness for someone that I have hurt or wronged?
I think to start with, here's two things. One is when you've hurt somebody else, there's always been a mixture. In other words, if you've done something wrong, usually the other person has contributed to it as well. And what you want to do is, it might be maybe 60% of the problem was them, but only 40% was you, at least in your mind. Now, the trouble is the other person probably thinks it's 60-40 the other direction. But what you do is you go and you admit your part. You do not say, yeah, but you did this too. You just, if it's only 20% your fault, you admit the 20% and you're quiet. So I feel like I did this wrong. And then you actually ask, do you agree, or have I missed something? Let them fill in what else, in other words, if you say, basically, you don't have to use the word repent, but basically you're saying, I repent for this. I think I really wronged you. Do you see it that way too? Would you add anything there? And sometimes the person will say, well, I think you also did this and this and this. And you try to confess and admit and repent for everything that you honestly can. The second thing you do is say, but here's a concrete way in which I'm going to try to change. I'm not just asking your forgiveness, but you do say that I repent, I ask your forgiveness, but then you say, and here's the change I'm going to make so that I don't do this again. And that's it. I think. In other words, you go talk without excusing yourself, without blaming people for other, just the part that's your responsibility, you admit, you're open to them adding to it, and then you admit that. Then you ask for forgiveness, and you say, here's the things I'm going to try to do to change that so this doesn't happen again. That's what I would call, that's how you ask for forgiveness.
Well, we've been talking about seeking forgiveness and extending forgiveness, but I do have one final question. Is there ever a time where we don't have to pursue forgiveness?
I think Jesus said no. If you use the word extend, meaning, when Jesus was saying 70 times 7, those places where when Peter says, do we have to forgive 7 times, and Jesus says 70 times 7? Most commentators think that Jesus is saying, no, you always have to do it. Most people do not think Jesus is really saying you got 490. You have to do it 490 times, and the 491st time you don't have to forgive. Almost nobody thinks he's saying that. It's a metaphor to say, no, you must always extend it. But don't forget what we just said, and that is, you forgiving internally, where you let go of the anger and you let go of the desire for vengeance, is one thing. But actually reconciling with somebody where you have a relationship, that is up to them. And therefore, extending forgiveness means you keep the door open if they're willing to change, but you do not let them abuse you. So there's a sense in which, yes, I do think there is no place where you don't extend forgiveness if you're talking about the inside. But by the way, this a book by two friends of mine, Dan Allender and Tremper Longman, some years ago, wrote a book called Bold Love. Tremper is an Old Testament biblical studies professor, and Dan was a psychologist. He's a counselor. And they talked about 3 kinds of people. He says they talked about evil people, an evil person, a fool, and a regular sinner. An evil person was somebody who is very cruel and absolutely knows what they're doing. They're being cruel and they're completely deliberate, completely conscious of it. They're trying to wreak havoc. They're angry, they're bitter, and they're trying to destroy people and destroy things, and they know exactly what they're doing. A fool is somebody who's very destructive, but kind of oblivious. They're proud or they're self-centered, and they're kind of like, they don't seem to realize. They feel like I'm okay and everybody else is wrong, but they're just wreaking havoc everywhere. But they don't seem to realize how bad they are, and they call them a fool. And a regular sinner is everybody else, because we all sin. And they did say that you have to put up more barriers around the fool and the evil person. That even if you forgive them, you have to be extraordinarily clear that unless they make major changes, that there is not going to be reconciliation. So in that sense, yes, do you always have to extend forgiveness inside? Yeah. I think with most people who are really evil, etc., you say, if I see a change in you, absolutely, I'd be interested in talking about a relationship, but I don't. And I'm not going to make it easy for you to get to me. I'm not going to make it easy for you at all to sin against me. And so in those cases, in many ways, you do withdraw, and you should, because you just don't want to become, you don't want to be grist for their evil mill.
That was Tim Keller. If you want to hear more of that conversation, you can go find it at relevantmagazine.com or get his final book, Forgive. Why Should I and How Can I? All right, stay tuned. Up next, it's your feedback. You're listening to Pedro the Lion. The song is Spend Time. Flashback.
Great artist there. Dave Bazan.
Doing good stuff.
Talk about like faith journeys that, his has played out over the course of many albums of his wrestling with, I don't know exactly where he stands right now, but I know over the years he's been very open about.
He's for the last 4 years, he's been mentoring Russell Brand. I heard.
And Bear Grylls. He's been living in the wilderness. Bear Grylls.
Yeah,
he's been living
that would have been
in
a
the
better
wilderness.
joke if he was mentoring Bear Grylls. Dadgummit.
For the last 4 years.
Why'd you fix my joke live? That wasn't nice.
For the last 4 years, yeah, he has been actually doing kind of a Man vs. Wild thing, unrelated to any of this.
Well, today's show is brought to you in part by World Vision. We all subscribe to a lot of services that make our lives easier and more entertaining. But as followers of Jesus, we should want to seek first the kingdom of God in all areas of life, including our spending. That's why I'm so excited about a new kind of subscription through World Vision. Not one for myself, but for others. It's called Believers for World Change. And when you sign up, you're joining a community of change makers working to help end extreme poverty around the world and here at home. World Vision is a Christian humanitarian organization that works with children, families, and communities to reach their God-given potential, focusing on things like gender equality, spiritual nurture, and access to clean water, education, job training, and healthcare, so the entire picture of poverty can be addressed. Let's subscribe to something new together. Subscribe to World Change today at worldvision.org. Again, that's worldvision.org. All right, it's time for your feedback. Last week, we asked you, why were we talking about life hacks? I forget this.
At the beginning of the show, Jesse was starting to talk about like the interesting like sleep hacks and the like ice bath hacks or something
all the
like
Huberman.
that.
Yeah, the Huberman.
Yeah, Huberman. Yeah,
that's what it was.
Which I'm anti. I any of these newfangled health revelations, I'm very skeptical of, and just eat junk food as an anecdote to them. Anyway, we'll continue.
That's right, because all the if you go to a nursing home, all the healthy 98-year-olds are drinking Dr. Pepper and eating Cheetos and
exactly.
Not worried about anything. That's right.
Exactly.
All right. So we asked you, what's the weirdest life hack that you've tried? You hit us up on X at Relevant Podcast, and here's a few of our favorites.
Vicky says blinking fast for a minute to help fall asleep at night. I'm going to try that, but I can't help but think it is also just is meant to make you look like a lunatic in the middle of the night. Like your significant other or like your roommate's like, "What are you doing?" Oh, this is life hack, man. I'm
you
not
would look
sitting up.
Demon possessed. If you walked in to the bedroom and the person's laying flat on the bed and the lights out and they're just their eyes are blinking crazily, that's insane.
Yeah, I think this is a joke on it.
I will say Vicky didn't clarify if it worked, just said that they've tried it. So you have to come back and tell us if it did work. Amanda said she stopped eating the banana and milk combination she used to have with cornflakes because banana and milk don't go well. I don't think that's a life hack. I think you just maybe had like an allergic reaction or something.
That's not a life hack. That's just a breakfast. Like what?
And plus, banana and milk are fine. They're totally fine.
They didn't do anything. They're fine.
Carrie says, I've become a tongue scraper after marrying a dentist. To be honest, I'm not sure if it works, but hearing his horror stories is enough to keep me consistent. Now, is this like brushing your tongue with a brush, or is this like a specific device?
No, there's like an actual like device that you can like scrape your tongue. It's supposed to like help get rid of like bacteria and I guess like other things that are on your tongue.
The bad breath stuff.
It's like flossing, you know, like.
But again, I'm curious of what are the quote unquote horror stories that have resulted in from not doing this? That she leaves a lot to to try to unpack here.
We need follow-ups.
Bethany says that when she feels anxious, she helps her anxiety by she smells an orange. She says, I know it smells weird, but the smell of it calms me down. This is essentially essential oils. Like, I need to smell lavender, or I need to smell an orange, or I need to smell...
an orange is not toxic.
That's true.
And concentrated chemicals.
But also, like, I need to know, is it like just a whole orange, or like, is it cut? Like, is it like, how long do you have to smell it before it starts calming you down? Like,
I will say this. I don't smell oranges because of anxiety, but I've been eating a lot of oranges lately.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just I'm in an orange kick. It's my
Would you say that
snack.
You're less anxious?
I don't know. Maybe I'm reaping benefits. I didn't even realize. Maybe I need to think more intentionally about this. But I have been eating a lot of oranges lately. Well, there's a lot more where that came from. If you want to check them out, go follow us on X @Relevant Podcast and just look at our replies. Okay, it's time for this week's
editorial question of the week.
All right. Well, earlier in the show, we were talking about, and she shared the picture with us. We should just randomly tweet this, Emily. I'm going to randomly tweet it.
The amount of embarrassing high school photos of me on the Relevant Twitter podcast, it'll now be 2, but that's too many.
My favorite is just tweeting them with absolutely no caption or context. Like, if you didn't hear this episode and you're just scrolling X and there's just this random picture of Emily at her church prom, like, what?
And I didn't know you were posting it, so nope. I'm scrolling Twitter and I saw it.
I love it. Anyway, the blanket. You'll see the blanket if you follow us. Anyway, we want to know the weirdest thing, the most embarrassing thing that your parents have at their house of you.
Now, this reminds me of that when I randomly watched this a few weeks ago, but the 21 Jump Street, where Channing Tatum goes over Jonah Hill's house, and they're both men in their 20s. And there's like, at Jonah Hill's parents' house, there is like a whole like dresser that is like his pictures and medals and you know, and it's like, it looks like your parents have one of those shrines to a kid who died in a car accident. Like, but you're still alive. And they're like the whole, you know, every parent, I feel like there's a lot of parents who have weird stuff like that in the house.
Oh, 100%. Even if they just left up, like I had a friend one time, and you go down a certain hallway to the bathroom, like the house bathroom, you go down the hall, and the hall was all lined of every year of my friend's life was a photo. Like, and you like chronologically like grew up with my friend as you headed toward the bathroom, and they were all like cringe, terrible, you know, school photos and stuff. So it's great. They're all framed, huge, big, fancy frames.
Good.
As one does.
Yeah. All right. Hit us up on X @Relevant Podcast. If you want to send us a picture of the thing, we would love it. So hit us up. Tell us the most embarrassing, cringiest thing that your parents still have at their house of you. Well, before we wrap things up, I want to encourage you to go dive into the teachings and writings of Pastor Tim Keller. He left an amazing faith legacy for us, very wise words to us for us to consider and follow. The book that he wrote that this interview is based on is called Forgive, Why Should I, and How Can I? And it's available wherever you get your books. All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap things up. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Emily Brown.
We will see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Relevant Podcast. Check out our features, interviews, and news updates every day at relevantmagazine.com. And make sure to follow Relevant on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest. For more great podcasts, browse the shows on the Relevant Podcast Network, which you can find at our site. And while you're there, don't miss the all-new era of Relevant Magazine. A new issue releases every other month at relevantmagazine.com.
Relevant Podcast Network.